everybody, and welcome to Autism Awakening, the podcast that helps you help your child with autism. I'm Dr. Jared Skowron, 20-year biomedical doctor, helping kids recover from being on the spectrum to having their best life. I'm excited for today's podcast because spring is here, and I live up in the Northeast, and we've got our flowers popping, and I'm sure in different areas of the country, different areas of the world, you're probably being exposed to spring pollen and spring allergies as well. So what we're going to be talking about is how allergies are going to affect your child. Now, the podcast title is Pollen Outrage, and that's because our allergies not only can cause stereotypical allergy symptoms like watery eyes and a runny nose, maybe some itchy skin, but it's also going to affect our behavior, and it's also going to affect our sleep. So that's what we're going to be talking about today in our podcast, is understanding how allergies and how histamine, which is that chemical mediator of allergies, affects our kids uniquely, and why we need to help and support our kids in natural ways to help them feel better. And that's what Autism Awakening is all about, different natural ways to help your child feel better, do better, and improve, and hopefully bring them on their road to recovery. So we're going to jump in, and I got a lot of great science behind our topic today. And of course, for those of you who have listened to Autism Awakening, you know I love science. I love how there's so much scientific research that supports natural therapies to helping our kids on the spectrum. If you're new to Autism Awakening, hey, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I hope you go back, listen to some other podcasts. We've been recording these for 5 years. And if you're interested in taking part in a live recording, just come on to our Facebook page, Spectrum Awakening, Thursdays at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can take part live. You can ask live questions. It's a lot of fun. So let's get into allergies. Let's get into histamine. Let's get into what this does for our kids. Live shout out to Kay. Kay's been a regular. She's Natalie's grandmother. Good to see you again here, Kay. I know you're always on every week. So let's briefly get into what we know about allergies, okay? We're all familiar with allergies. Now, whether they be environmental allergies and allergies to pollens and allergies to grasses, allergies to weeds, maybe it's hay fever, or whether it's a food allergy, okay? So a food allergy is, very similar kind of thing, but instead of to some kind of tree or grass, we just have an allergy to a certain food, okay? So we're all familiar with these, and we're familiar with the stereotypical allergy symptoms. Now, stereotypical allergy symptoms, we're looking at watery eyes, we're looking at a runny nose, we're looking at itchy skin, all the typical stuff that you're familiar with, all right? These symptoms are produced through a chemical called histamine, all right? Histamine. Now, many of you are probably familiar with histamine because there's a multitude of over-the-counter medications that are antihistamines. So things like Benadryl, things like Zyrtec, things like Claritin, things like Cromolyn sodium. These are over-the-counter or other medications that are going to reduce those allergy symptoms. Now, let's talk about how those work, because if we understand how those work, we understand how histamine is affecting the body. All right, so most things work in the body like a key in a keyhole, okay? So you have a key, and when the key goes in the keyhole, it unlocks the door, all right? So we have the key, which is histamine, and then we have the keyhole, which is called a histamine receptor. So the key word here is receptor. Receptors are the parts of the cell that interact with different chemicals, different hormones, different substances in the body. Quick live shout out to Alexandra. She is our great Romanian mom out in Europe. Hope you guys are doing well. So, again, the key is histamine. The keyhole is the histamine receptor. When histamine hits that receptor, when it hits that part of the cell, you're going to get the symptoms that we're familiar with. Excuse me. So it's important to understand that because there are actually multiple types of histamine receptors. There's multiple kinds of keyholes. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat this morning. All right, so one of those keyholes is a histamine receptor, which is called H1. There's multiple, and they number them, okay? H1 is the receptor. It's that keyhole that produces your stereotypical allergy symptoms. Watery eyes, runny nose, itchy skin, yada, yada. These are what the typical antihistamines prevent, okay? So again, things like Benadryl, Claritin, and Zyrtec, etc., they prevent the key from going in that keyhole, thereby preventing the symptoms, all right? Once you take the antihistamine away, you're going to have the symptoms because you still have the histamine floating around, all right? Now, there are other histamine receptors. There are other keyholes. Remember, the first one is called H1, and that's typical allergy symptoms. The second histamine receptor is called H2. Now, H2 is a receptor in the stomach. And what it does when histamine hits this keyhole in the stomach, H2, it produces stomach acid. So this is why some people, when they have allergies, they might feel more acid reflux. You might feel more cranky or uncomfortable because you're getting that pain in your chest, especially in the morning. Acid reflux is always worse in the morning because we're lying down and just easier for the acid to get from our stomach into our esophagus. So if you feel this kind of acid reflux pain, or your child, again, if they're nonverbal or they're semi-verbal, they just may be more irritable, all right? They may be hitting their chest, they may be touching their chest, they may be pounding their chest because they're trying to get that pain away, all right? Or these kids who are kind of behaviorally problematic in the morning, or that's the worst behavior time, or one of your worst behavior times through the day, it might be acid reflux and they're just responding to the pain. So that's our second histamine receptor, the allergies. Make the body release histamine, causes H1, typical allergy symptoms, H2, stomach acid production. Now, the next keyhole receptor, which we're going to talk the most about today, is H3, all right? And I'm glad Gada said stimming, because this is actually what this third histamine receptor does, okay? The H3 receptor is in the brain. Okay, and histamine acts as a brain stimulant. So sit on that and understand that completely. Histamine is a brain stimulant. And when histamine hits this H3 receptor in the brain, you're going to get more anxiety, more agitation, more stimming, and more sleep problems. Let's say that again. Histamine, when it hits the brain, causes behavior issues, anxiety, sleep problems, and stimming, okay? So that's where histamine is causing all these different reactions in the body. There's actually a fourth histamine receptor called H4, which is part of the immune system, understandably, because histamine is an immune chemical. So we've got a lot of different ways that histamine affects the body besides stereotypical allergic responses. And that's what I really want you guys to understand. When we're exposed to our allergies, okay, our body releases histamine, and then that histamine can cause a multitude of symptoms, whether it be stereotypical allergic, whether it be stomach acid production, whether it be anxiety, stimming, sleep problems, behavior issues, or immune system abnormalities. Histamine does a lot. Another important thing to understand is that our body produces its own histamine. Histamine is produced in the body because histamine is a type of protein. And so that production of histamine is affected by a multitude of things. It's affected by your genetics, and it's also affected by the foods you eat. Because histamine is a protein building block, because histamine is an amino acid, it's present in certain foods, and you will have these symptoms, these allergic symptoms, these non-stereotypical allergic symptoms when you eat foods that are high in histamine. So we're going to be reviewing all this stuff today. And we're going to be reviewing all this stuff today, how it happens and what you can do about it. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. Number one, we're all familiar with histamine. Histamine can cause the allergic symptoms. It can cause the anxiety, the stimming, and the sleep problems. All right, where does that histamine come from? All right, number one, it's a protein. So we get it from the foods we eat, and our body makes it. Our body produces it from other proteins. So when that histamine is stored up in our body, when we're exposed to allergies, that histamine is released. And that histamine comes out of our cells, it affects all different parts of our body, and we have the symptoms that we don't like. So there's a few ways that we can intervene. Number one, we can avoid our allergens, all right? Tough to do when they're environmental allergies and it's spring or it's fall, etc. When it's a food allergy, it's a little bit easier because we can, choose to not eat that food. But it's the struggle is when we get histamine from other foods. So we can actually have allergic reactions or allergic symptoms when we eat a food with histamine, even if we're not allergic to that food. All right? Sounds kind of confusing, but wanted to make you understand that it's all about this chemical, histamine, where it comes from, how it's released, and how it affects our body. So we can avoid the allergens, we can reduce the foods that contain histamine, and what we're going to talk about a lot today and the research behind it are different natural supplements that will help reduce histamine in your body. All right? Again, natural supplements that will reduce histamine in your body. All right, let's take a look. And you know what, I'm going to get to the live questions after we talk about the science, but I wanted to read a question right now. Gada said, what investigation can I do for knowing if my child has high histamine? All right, very simple. You can get a urine test or you can get a blood test. So there's urine tests and blood tests that will analyze histamine levels. These are through stereotypical big box labs. With my patients in my telemedicine clinic, I order through Quest, I order through LabCorp, I order through hospitals. Any of these are going to be able to test your histamine level. Okay? All right, let's get first to, hold on, make sure I have let's get our old 50-plus-year-old cheaters. Here's our first research study. First research study is the role of neuroinflammation in autism spectrum disorder. There are documented altered neuroinflammation among individuals that are diagnosed with autism. Histamine plays a significant role in the regulation of neuroinflammatory processes of microglia and numerous neuropsychiatric disorders, including autism. All right? The word that I want to highlight there is microglia. That's the immune system of the brain. Microglia, immune system of the brain. So we know that there's brain inflammation in our kids, and we know histamine is part of that and part of how it happens. Okay. Here is another research study, blood levels of histamine in children with autism. So this research study measured histamine levels because it's a protein, it's easy to measure. And again, going back to Gada's question, how do I test this? You test it in the blood or you test it in the urine. The average histamine levels in kids with autism was 5.3 times higher than neurotypical controls. Histamine levels in autism is over 5 times as high in autism than neurotypical controls. Okay? So they are going to have 5 times the symptoms that are caused by histamine. Got it? All right. Why does this happen? It probably happens due to different genetics. All right. And we're not talking about genetic conditions, and it's not like you're diagnosed with a genetic histamine problem, but we're all a little different genetically. And so if you have certain genetics, you're probably going to have more issues with histamine. So here's a research study talking about altered expression of histamine signaling genes in autism. I didn't highlight them here, but which are the ones I wanted to look at? HRH1, HRH2, HRH3, HNMT. If you've ever done genomic polymorphism analysis like MTHFR, and there's a bunch of companies out there, they might have highlighted these genes, the HRH genes and the HNMT genes. So if these aren't functioning very well, you're more likely to have issues with histamine, whether you have autism or not. Here's our next research study, more genetics, genetic mechanisms of sleep disorders in children with autism. Let's just sit on that, genetic abnormalities of sleep disorders. There's a lot that goes on with sleep. Okay, sleep is a really difficult thing to work with and help and treat because there's so many different things that affect it. Okay, and obviously there's things like melatonin, and I love our super serotonin supplement that will help with sleep, but sometimes those don't work. And they don't work because there's so many things affecting our sleep. One of them is histamine. If you have histamine problems, if you have more sleep issues during allergy season, then it's probably a histamine cause. So, genetic mechanisms of sleep disorders in children with autism, and again, it highlights the mutations in the histamine genes, the HRH1, HRH2, HRH3, and how these histamine receptors intensify histamine's ability to promote arousal. So again, the more histamine, the more you're waking up. All right. So if you have these kids who wake up through the night, or if you co-sleep with your child, and you co-sleep with your child because it's the only way they'll stay asleep until whatever time, they're still waking up, they're still checking in, they see that you're there, they go back to sleep, but they're still up and down, up and down. They're not asleep the whole night, which is an issue. All right. Next research study talks about asthma and allergies in children with autism. Overall allergy in children with autism was associated with higher stereotypy scores measured by the ABC, the Aberrant Behavior Checklist. Very simple. Allergies in children with autism had more stimming. All right, stereotypy, stimming, same thing. More allergies, more stimming. Why? Because histamine is this brain stimulant. Because histamine is making your children want to flap or want to motor tic in some way. So, and again, when I talk to my patients in my practice about stimming, stimming's okay. All right, stimming is not a bad medical thing. The child feels good when they do it. It's socially different. And so when our child is stimming out in the supermarket or out in the stores or at schools, we may feel awkward about it, but they don't. They feel just fine. All right, the majority of them. So if it makes them feel good and it's not hurting them medically, then it's an okay thing to do. But I still want to get to the bottom of why it's happening, because the why of what's causing the stimming and the stereotypies could be having other effects in the body as well. And a lot of it is due to histamine. All right, let's go back to those histamine receptors. Remember, we talked about H1, typical allergy symptoms, H2, stomach acid, H3, stimulation of the brain. So here we have the histamine H3 receptor. When it's activated, it triggers stimming in the mouse model of tic disorders. So what this research study does is it's an animal study for those who have tic disorders, those who are stimming, those who have stereotypies. When they give a medication to activate that H3 histamine receptor in the brain, they stim more. More histamine in the brain, more stimming. This is why we need to reduce histamine to have normal levels. If we prevent histamine from hitting the brain, these things improve. How do we know? There's a lot of animal studies out there that show that there are, let me stop before I show the research studies. There's a lot of research studies, and they're all animal studies right now, but I know this works in kids because we do it in our practice. There's a lot of research studies where you have an animal, mice, that's what they study on, and you give the mouse autism. And then we can start to treat these mice to see if we can improve the symptoms that they're given when they're given autism. Okay? And so what these research studies are showing, and I've got a few of them, is that there are certain medications that will block. It's like Benadryl or Claritin or Zyrtec, but for the brain. So typical antihistamines won't block histamine in the brain, but other medications will. So if we give a medication that prevents histamine from hitting the brain, it's an H3 antagonist. That's the medical term. We give these medications to the animals in the research study. Let's take a look at what happens. Okay? Amelioration of cognitive impairments in the animal model of autism by H3 receptor antagonists. Let's break this down. If we give a medication that prevents histamine from activating the brain in the animal models of autism, we get better cognition. Got it? Stop histamine from hitting the brain, better cognition. Next, very similar. Histamine receptor antagonist alleviates cognition and synaptic plasticity alterations in the animal model of autism. Same thing. If we give a medication that prevents histamine from hitting the brain, we get better cognition and we get better brain plasticity. We get better learning. Okay? Because again, histamine's a stimulant. It's an accelerator. If I hit that accelerator in my car and I'm going 100 miles an hour, I'm going to have problems controlling things. I might miss an exit. I might get into an accident. This is where histamine as a brain stimulant needs to be in normal levels, not high. Here's another one. Antagonists of the histamine H3 receptor restores social deficits in the mouse model of autism. So are our children's social issues because of histamine? And a lot of my patients, either avoid other kids and just don't play with them. You know, you bring them to the playground and all these kids playing together and your child just kind of sits on the sidelines. Or they want to engage and they want to play, but they don't know what to do. So they just kind of stand there and they're like, I'm here because the rest of you are here. I just don't know what to do. Okay? So that's the possibility of it. All right. That's the research studies when it comes to showing how histamine affects our kids. So let's stop, review that, and then go into the natural treatments. All right. Histamine. It's a stimulant in the brain. Histamine causes stereotypical allergic symptoms, watery eyes, runny nose, itchy skin, when that histamine hits the H1 receptor. That's blocked by stereotypical antihistamine medications, Benadryl, Claritin, Zyrtec, etc. There are other histamine receptors. There's other ways the body interacts with histamine. One of them is in the stomach, causing acid reflux, and the other one's in the brain. So when histamine hits the brain, more hyperactivity, more anxiety, more stimming, worse sleep. So what can we do? Number one, we want to reduce the histamine in the body. Now, where does that come from? Number one, it's a protein. So your body is going to get it from foods. We're going to be talking about foods that are high in histamine, which you may want to reduce, and to eat other foods that are not high in histamine. Also, when it's allergy season like right now and it's spring and the pollens are out, we're going to be getting more of our allergens and the body's going to be releasing that histamine. The body has it, gets it from food, formulates it, packs it away to release it when it's time. So we can try to avoid our allergies. We can reduce histamine intake through food, and there are a couple key natural supplements that are scientifically researched to reduce histamine in the body. Number one, most important, please, 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 is vitamin C. Okay? Vitamin C is known to reduce histamine levels, and it's been known to reduce histamine levels for almost 50 years. Let me say that again. Almost 50 years we've known vitamin C reduces histamine. Here's a research study from 1980, all right? Histamine and vitamin C in the blood. Histamine level increases exponentially as the ascorbic acid is vitamin C, as ascorbic acid level decreases. Oral administration of ascorbic acid, oral administration of vitamin C resulted in a reduction of the blood histamine levels in every instance in this research study. Vitamin C, vitamin C, vitamin C. Where do we get that? Fruits and vegetables, okay? Doesn't have to be oranges. Strawberries and peppers have more vitamin C than other foods, but obviously our kids, they're picky eaters. They may not be eating their fruits and vegetables, so get on a vitamin C supplement. Now, we've got a few of them. This is our histamine C supplements. We got many forms. We've got a chewable tablet, we've got a capsule, we've got a powder, and we've got a gummy vitamin C. So I love our histamine C products. They're all a little bit different. They're not all the same. But, you know, kids love gummies. So, you know, if you need to get your vitamin C through gummies, go for it. If you can take the powder or the capsule, I would. Because our histamine C capsule and powder forms have other ingredients that are good for histamine. What are those? Those are called bioflavonoids. Bioflavonoids are substances in different foods that also reduce histamine levels. So here's another research study. Flavonoids and related compounds as anti-allergic substances. Flavonoids possess anti-allergic activities. They inhibit histamine release. And again, our body gets histamine from food, makes histamine from other things, holds on to it to then let it go when it's time. So the more flavonoids you have, the more vitamin C you have, the lower histamine levels you'll have in your blood. Period. All right? That's where our histamine C supplements are great. The capsules and the powder are the best in our line, but we also have chewable tablets and we also have gummies. Okay, what's next? So again, that's number one. Oh, here's another research study on flavonoids. Flavonoids inhibit histamine release, period. All right, they tested 6 different flavonoids and they inhibited histamine release. So the actions of these flavonoids suggest the potential activity for treatment of allergic inflammatory diseases through the downregulation of mast cell activation. That's a lot of medical terms, but it means flavonoids prevent histamine symptoms, period. All right? Now, this stuff is good whether you're on the spectrum or not. If you're dealing with allergies, if you're dealing with histamine symptoms, get on a vitamin C flavonoid combo. Period. It's going to help everybody who has histamine or allergies, which is most people. All right. The next natural things that you can use to help with histamine are a combination of quercetin, nettles, bromelain, and rosemary. And we've got these four supplements we've got these four ingredients in our supplement Allergon. Now, I'm out of our Allergon because my family's been taking it because it's spring and we've been having some stereotypical allergic symptoms. Really helps our sleep, though. You take that Allergon, you take the nettles and the quercetin and the rosemary and the bromelain, you're going to get better life quality. You're going to reduce those histamine symptoms. Whether you have seasonal allergies or not, the nettles, the quercetin, our Allergon supplement is going to reduce the histamine activity in the body. Period. All right? Let's see the research. This is actually a printout from Mount Sinai Hospital, and they talk about hay fever and they talk about nettles. Now, nettle's a plant. Nettle's ability to reduce the amount of histamine in the body sorry, I shouldn't have highlighted produces. But what they talk about here, nettle has the ability to reduce the amount of histamine in the body. All right? Nettles are great. Next, quercetin, as I mentioned. Quercetin also has anti-allergic immune responses. Quercetin is known for its antioxidant activity and its anti-allergic properties, its antiviral activity, its inhibition of histamine release. Plant extracts of quercetin is the main ingredient of many anti-allergic drugs, which is more competent in inhibiting IL-8, which is an inflammatory chemical, than cromolyn sodium. So quercetin, A, is anti-allergic, and B, is the ingredient of many allergy medications, and C, is more potent than another anti-allergy medication called cromolyn sodium. It's great stuff. Now, Ashley just put something in here, and I wanted to highlight it. The quercetin makes my son's behavior worse. And Ashley, that does happen in a handful of kids, or a handful of people in general. And that's why, there is no one solution for everybody. And I'm glad you highlighted this, Ashley. So the quercetin also is involved with our COMT gene. So if you have COMT polymorphisms, quercetin may not react best for you. But this is where I tell people, I want you to try everything for your kids. All right? There are so many things out there that work. Try it. See what happens. That's why Spectrum Awakening has a 30-day return policy. Okay? You try something and it works, awesome. That's what we want. You try something that doesn't work, send it back. All right? Spectrum Awakening would rather you try something for your child and send it back for a refund than never try it at all, because there are too many things that could help. All right. Here's another quick little comment on quercetin. Quercetin on allergic diseases. It has anti-allergic functions that are known for inhibiting histamine production and pro-inflammatory mediators. This is also from Mount Sinai Hospital as well. They just started to publish a multitude of natural scientific things on their website, which is pretty cool. All right. So last thing I wanted to talk about was the food and the diet. But again, let's kind of summarize where we're at. Histamine. We're all familiar with it. We've all heard of it. Histamine is going to be made in the body through proteins. All right, histamine is an amino acid. It's a protein building block. And we get histamine from our foods. Certain foods have more histamine than others. We can make histamine from other proteins. And that histamine is stored inside the cells of our body until it's released. And it's often released when we're exposed to our allergies. Whether it's spring seasonal allergies, whether it's food allergies, who knows what it may be, that histamine is released in the body. It can create stereotypical allergic symptoms, watery eyes, runny nose, itchy skin. It can also cause non-stereotypical symptoms, including acid reflux and hyperactivity in the brain. Histamine is a brain stimulant, causes anxiety, causes stimming and stereotypies, causes sleep problems. So what do we do about it? We can take natural supplements that will reduce histamine levels in the blood. Scientific research shows vitamin C, bioflavonoids, nettles, and quercetin are all scientifically proven to reduce histamine levels in the body. Once those histamine levels are lower, you're going to have fewer of those symptoms caused by the histamine. All right? Diet is also important as well. if your child deals with histamine issues, there are foods that are high in histamine. You may want to reduce or avoid them. So let's go through what they are. Where did I get this one? I think this was from the Mayo. So this printout's from the Mayo Clinic's website. So here they have what foods trigger histamine. All right. Number 1 for us grown-ups, alcohol. Number 2, processed meat. What's a processed meat? Anything that's not raw. All right. If it's been cooked and sits on the shelf, it's going to have more histamine. Things like cold cuts, things like hot dogs, things like chicken nuggets, things like shrimp cocktail. Oh my gosh, pre-cooked shrimp cocktail, huge levels of histamine. All right? Any meat that's not raw has to be cooked. It's sitting there, has high histamine levels. Okay? Next. Hey, who loves their cheese sticks? Cheeses have high histamine. Vegetables like tomatoes. And when you think tomatoes, you got to think ketchup. So if you're sitting there with a hot dog and a cheese stick and some ketchup, you're getting so much histamine. Bananas, citrus fruits, tuna fish, strawberries, nuts, peanuts, chocolate, pork, back to hot dogs, everybody, egg whites, all right? Even certain additives like colors and preservatives have histamine in them. And this is where so many of our kids, if you're on not the healthiest diet, if you're eating your chicken nuggets and you got your hot dogs and you've got tuna fish or you got peanut butter and you're dipping it in ketchup and then you have something with a color in it, boy, we wonder why our kids are bouncing off the roof all the time and they're stimming and they can't stop and they're not sleeping and we medicate them with things like clonidine or melatonin to make them sleep. We want to make sure this stuff is in balance. Okay? So I hope this helps you guys. I hope it kind of triggers something in your brain to say, hey, you know what? I'm interested in my child's histamine response. And let me try some vitamin C and bioflavonoids with our histamine C supplement. Let me try the nettles and the quercetin with our Allergon. Let's try a reduced histamine diet and see how my child responds. Is there better sleep? Is there better stimming and stereotypies? Is there better cognition and social interactions? Try and see what happens, okay? Some of our kids are going to respond really well to this. Some of our kids won't respond at all, okay? Because our kids with autism, our kids on the spectrum are not all the same. They're all a little bit different. But that's why you've got to try all these different interventions to figure out what's going to help your child the best. Let's get to our live questions, everybody. We've got... again, live shout out to Kay, who's always watching. She's Natalie's grandma. Alyssa, and Kay, you're from Kentucky, right? Why do my brain is thinking that. Alyssa says, hey, Doc, what's the best supplement you would recommend for constipation? Ho, 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 Alyssa. Well, let me tell you what we've got. I wish I had it up here. It's downstairs, and it's downstairs right now. So Alyssa, I want you to go back a few podcasts. I'm not sure when I did this podcast, maybe March. Anyway, or maybe February, but go back and check. We did a podcast on constipation and on the side effects of Miralax. All right. I'm not a fan of Miralax. What did they use before Miralax? They used magnesium. Magnesium's been used for hundreds of years for constipation. And we've known this for literally centuries. Okay. Now, magnesium works well, but what works even better is combining magnesium with electrolytes. And the reason is magnesium is going to loosen your stool. It's going to make the stool softer. But electrolytes are necessary to have the right water balance in the colon. So I formulated last year a combination of magnesium and electrolytes, and it's called Brown Log Train. So Alyssa, try Brown Log Train. It's a sweet tasting powder of magnesium and electrolytes. It's worked amazing for so many of my patients. It's worked amazing for so many of our listeners to the podcast. So try that. Also, I would avoid dairy and bananas. I think dairy and bananas are two of the most constipating foods out there. All right. Kay, what would cause Natalie to eat stink bugs? Well, I don't know. I'm feeling it in my mouth right now, and it's not a good feeling. I don't know why, Kay. I'm not concerned about it medically, but you know what? Maybe it's either a sensory issue or it's a mineral deficiency like pica. So look into the mineral deficiencies, maybe give her a mineral supplement like we've got our detox mineral replacement, or we've just got to give her something different to put in her mouth for the sensory issues. I've talked about them a little bit, but I want to say it again. I like licorice root sticks. Okay, licorice, not the candy, but the plant. Licorice is a plant. That's where they originally got the candy, or the ingredients to make the candy. And the root of the licorice plant, they sell as little sticks. Like I get mine from Amazon, and you can just chew on them. You're just chewing on a stick, and it's great for the immune system, and it's great for our temper, and it's great for our mood because licorice is an adrenal herb, and so normalizing those cortisol levels is really going to help balance your mood. So to answer your question again, Kay, I don't know if it's sensory. I don't know if it's pica due to a mineral deficiency, but try to replace it with something else. Eli, what are your thoughts on colostrum? Is it safe to take on a dairy-free diet? Most colostrum is from dairy, so I would look at that first. I think colostrum is great. I think breast milk colostrum is the best. I mean, human colostrum is wonderful, glorious. Colostrum supplements can be good for the immune system, but many are made from dairy, so watch for that. Lindsay, hey, you have a recommendation for newborn vaccination schedule? I do, Lindsay, and unfortunately our podcast is not a place to discuss it because then we get banned on YouTube and other platforms. So we're not going to be talking about that schedule here on our podcast. However, I think it's a great conversation to have one-on-one. So if you're interested in a telemedicine appointment, you can go to our website, Spectrum Awakening. We can take care of that for you. Would vitamin A and probiotics be good to take prior to shots to help with the immunity? I would definitely do vitamin A. And number one, and we've been talking about this on the podcast a long time, no Tylenol, no acetaminophen, no paracetamol, no Calpol. All right, these are all different names for the same thing. Those have been scientifically researched to be a huge factor for autism. Huge. We've got researchers from Duke and Harvard publicly publishing that Tylenol, acetaminophen, paracetamol are all huge risk factors for autism. So definitely avoid that. I would definitely do the vitamin A. Probiotics, I'm not sure. But we can have that conversation one-on-one, Lindsay. Or, you know what? Aha! Go to our Rumble page. We just started a Rumble account, and we have a great video about this from a lady down in Texas who's done a lot of research on it. Go to our Rumble account and watch that. I think you're going to enjoy it. Gotta. Stimming. My child can't sit on a chair, moving front and back, rolling his fingers, biting his hands. Number one, let's work on this histamine, Gotta. So is histamine causing your child's stereotypies? Let's find out, all right? If it's not that, I would go down the yeast road or the gut infection road, but let's start with the histamine. All right, Bridget, this is Bentley. Oh, Bentley, more. The last couple of months, sleep issues, stimming, and behavior. Again, Bridget, because of the season, this is why I'm having this podcast now to talk about allergies and histamine. So try, if you haven't tried our Allergon and our histamine C, Bridget, try it and see if it helps Bentley sleep. Carla, H3, the receptor, hits the brain, causes anxiety and stimming. You better believe it. That's what the research says. Diane, hey, doc, my son reacted bad supplement and he developed insomnia and high anxiety. That happens, okay? This stuff doesn't work. Medications, supplements, whatever. There is no one solution for every kid with autism. It is a spectrum. Everybody's going to react differently. So I'm glad you brought this up because that's why we need to try things. Try it, see your child's effect. If something's working, keep doing it. If it doesn't work and you get side effects, don't do that. Let's do something different. Anyway, he missed school all of April, and then I removed the supplement and gave our super serotonin. And since yesterday, he went to school, but he's still very fearful of everything. Well, I'm glad you switched, and I'm glad the super serotonin is helping. In fact, he went back to school after missing school all of April. But he's still very fearful, so we're going to have to figure out where that anxiety is coming from. Maybe histamine, maybe something else. Tracy, can a bee sting trigger pandas? No. But it sure can make those symptoms worse because of the histamine. All right, if we're going to get stung by a bee or a mosquito or any insect, a histamine is part of that response. And so that histamine is, again, it's a big stimulant to the brain. So you may be seeing pandas-like symptoms, but I highly doubt it's going to cause pandas or PANS. Gotta, what investigation for high histamine? As we talked about, blood and urine, any lab. Sophia, can constipation make histamine levels worse? I don't think so. I haven't read anything about that, and I can't, thinking about biochemistry and biology and physiology, I can't understand how that would work. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't know, but I haven't heard that. But it sure will make behaviors bad. Diane, is it okay to take a histamine supplement without checking? Definitely. Oh gosh, yes. Oh please, you don't need to test your histamine levels. Try your histamine C, try your Allergon. You don't need to check your histamine levels. Got it. My child has allergic conjunctivitis, especially in the spring. Is it a sign of high histamine? Yeah. Yes, it is. Anything allergic is a sign of high histamine. And we didn't even get into those kids who have more severe histamine conditions like eosinophilic esophagitis or eosinophilic colitis, mast cell activation syndrome. Okay? Boy, you've got to get on these histamine supplements, guys. A lot of people sharing. Thank you, guys. Gada said, what are the side effects of an H3 histamine blocker? I'm not sure. That's not something I've prescribed. My specialty is natural therapies versus the pharmaceuticals. I do like talking about the pharmaceuticals because it's important to have that in our discussion, but I'm not an expert on that, so that's just something you have to ask Dr. Google. Dr. Google, he's free, but he's got so many answers. Aquila, is mind fog or mast cell related to histamine? Yes. Period. Yes, try it. Try the nettles, the quercetin, the C, the bioflavonoids, Aquila. Alyssa, would vitamin C reduce inflammation in the sinuses? If the inflammation is because of histamine, yes. If the sinuses is due to infection, maybe not. But I would still try. Right. Mona, help. Any suggestions? How to get a picky child to take the Skowron Solution supplements. All right. So a lot of people ask me this. They say, hey, how do I get this stuff in my kid? He's a picky eater. Does it even work? Yes, it works if you can get that in them. All right. I tell my families, again, in my telemedicine clinic, I see patients all over the world. You sneak it in however you want, all right? Whether you are mixing it in a drink, like a juice or a shake, whether you're mixing it in food, like, you know how you like put pills in peanut butter for your dog, anything, you can sneak it in, go for it, okay? I say anything, but then, I've got these exceptions in my brain because I once saw a patient whose mother, autistic kid, whose mother was a pediatrician. And she came up to me and she was like, I figured out how to put this stuff in. I give him a liter of Coke and just mix it in. He can't taste it in the Coke. And I'm like, I'm not really happy about that. I don't need our kids drinking like quarts and liters of soda every day. But whatever you can do. Some of my parents have gone as far to get a syringe at a drugstore and mix everything in some juice, put it in the syringe, squirt it in, and then give them a prize afterwards. And they start to get in that habit like, hey, this is going to be nasty, but it's done and it's quick, and I'll get my parents off my back. Some people get an ice cube tray and make Jell-O shots, and portion out the supplements in each little ice cube tray. Or same thing with juice pops, get an ice cube tray, pour some juice in there, put a stick in there like a popsicle stick so you have popsicles and put your supplements in there. Anything you can do. Anything. All right, Sophia, is uncured bacon high in histamine? Yes. It doesn't have the nitrates and nitrites, which is great because those are cancerous, but yes, it has high histamine. Sophia, Doc, you mentioned, and I'll tell you, one of my family members has a histamine problem, and anytime we have bacon and eggs in the morning, man, those behaviors ramp up. I'm telling you, they really do. Sophie, Doc, you mentioned medication for histamine. What would you suggest, or did I miss that part of the video? And she is from Cyprus. Oh, Sophie from Cyprus. That's a part of the world I have never been to, but would love. It looks so beautiful. Anyway, I want you to try the vitamin C, the histamine C products with the vitamin C and the bioflavonoids. I want you to try the Allergon with the nettles and the quercetin. For those of you in Europe, okay, we have a distributor in Europe called MandyMart. So go to mandymart.eu. That's MandiMart.eu. They are our exclusive distributor of our supplements throughout the European Union and the UK. All right, BP. How frequently do we need to dose the vitamin C and quercetin? I would do it twice a day. Twice a day. Diane, your supplements names are very creative. Thank you, Diane. We do that in combination with surveys. So we have surveys for a lot of our products, naming surveys, and we get you guys to name the products. Or sometimes I'll just have, this aha moment in the shower, and that's how I came out with Brown Long Train. So it's important not to be too serious. We got to take off this serious facade, and we are just here to help kids, period. Colleen, will dissolving the powder with boiling water diminish the supplements? No, not at all. No, I wouldn't fry it, but boiling water, at 200x degrees is going to be a lot. It is going to be fine, especially when we compare it to like 400, 500 degree frying. All right, Rahila, can we test for allergies with a note test? No, you cannot. You need blood test for allergies. Or you go to your allergist and get like the million needles. I mean, a lack of sleep, what can help? Well, again, I'm a big fan of serotonin. So our super serotonin supplement helps a lot of kids with their sleep. However, if you're seeing more sleep problems now because of this spring allergy season, it may be due to histamine. So try our histamine supplements, try our Allergon, try our histamine C, which will reduce histamine levels in the body and potentially help your sleep. Fino, hey doc, how long will you treat yeast with the yeast bundle? I would say 2 to 3 months and then retest. But it can take months and months and months and months and months. It can take a long time. Tracy, fear at school might be contamination OCD related. Sure, Tracy, that definitely can. Again, try the super serotonin, maybe try the histamine if it's worse now. Also, go back. If you guys haven't watched my podcast with Temple Grandin, I interviewed Temple back in February, I think. She's hilarious, by the way. And she was talking about the new LED lights. And the new LED lights, in order to save electricity, they actually flicker on and off. So the cheap ones flicker a lot, and the good ones don't flicker as much. But they flicker so fast, our eyes can't pick it up. It's like watching a helicopter. I can't see the blades. My brain don't go that fast, right? And our brain doesn't go as fast with these flickering lights. But your brain still processes it. Your brain is still affected by it. So what Temple Grandin was saying is a lot of kids will go to school or therapy or wherever, and if they've got these cheap LED lights, that constant flashing of the bulbs, not visible to the naked eye, but processed in the brain, can be too stressful and overstimulating for them. So it's an interesting thing. Ibaranki, hey doc, is there a way we can get your supplements easily in Canada? Oh, not yet. Unfortunately, the shipping charges with DHL and the customs fees are outrageous. Most of my Canadian patients are going to pay double. So I'm still working on it with Amazon. Amazon, unfortunately, is a nightmare. And I'm also going to work on it with FullScript, which is a distributor of supplements, the largest distributor of supplements in the U.S. So let me work on that. But I'm glad you brought it up. Brianna, my child had a hot dog last night and then stayed awake all night. Ta-da! Histamine. Does this mean he could have a nitrate sensitivity? No, a histamine sensitivity. Histamine, the hot dogs, the ketchup. All right? Rodney, good to see you again. BP. Rodney's on every week. BP, are the dosing on the back of your supplements for adults or children? They are for children. Do we need to start with a full dose or no, you don't. You can start at a lower dose and work your way up. And look, what I tell my patients, use what works. That's all that matters. And what works for everybody is going to be a little different. So if you take 1 capsule and that's enough, great. If you need 2, great. If you need 3, great. Use what works. Got it. Is lemon juice good for them? Could be. I don't see why not. Jeannie, I tested the LED light theory with my slow-mo camera, seeing it. It's true. It flickers like crazy. Yeah. All you got to do, like Jeannie said, where's my phone? My phone. I'm recording on my phone. All you do is take your phone, put it on video in slow-mo, and just take a video with these lights. It's nuts. It blow your mind. Brianna, have you seen much improvement with kids who do primitive reflex integration? Some kids, yes, but not all. Diane, I've tried to contact the store here in Canada, and they all refused. Diane, that stinks. I'm so sorry. All All right, Ruby, can high histamine cause teeth grinding? No, that's parasites. We'll get into that in a second. My son's been doing this the last couple weeks, even while sleeping. Okay, so let me say a few things about teeth grinding, because this is a good question. Kids around the age of 4, teeth grind at night. Happens. Period. Happened to my kid. I freaked out. I called my dentist, and they're like, "It's cool. That's the age." They're going to teeth grind at night around 4 years old. Don't worry about it. Daytime teeth grinding is not good. Okay? Daytime teeth grinding, definitely a problem. So the majority of the time, Ruby, it's parasites. And I'll tell you, man, parasites, they're everywhere. Okay? We think, hey, we're in the U.S., we don't have parasites. And then, that's kind of the stereotype. We're like, oh, the U.S., it's such a clean country. We don't have parasites in our food. No, everything's fine. But then I was watching TV the other day, and there was a commercial for a dog, worm pill. Like, wait a minute. Dogs are taking worm pills all the time as a preventive. I guess they're in America. I guess they're around. Okay? Now, we're not eating stuff off the ground like the dogs, but I had a patient one time who said, hey, my kid's got a lot of sensory issues. He's always chewing on the dog's bone. So, hey, here's the dog and eating the bone, and then my kid picks it up and chews on the bone. Guess what? This is how stuff gets transferred. There's parasites and there's worms everywhere. And daytime teeth grinding is a huge sign of potential parasites. Here's what you're going to do. Number one, if you want a stool test, get a stool test. Okay? The ones in conventional labs really aren't that good unless you get a PCR analysis test, which LabCorp has, which is nice. But you probably want a more advanced stool test. Now, we've got a few on our website. We've got Genova's. We've got Mosaic Diagnostics. We've got the GI map. If you want it on our website, you can get it. And that's going to be the most accurate way to look at parasites. Also, make sure you test around a full moon. Okay? You've seen the movies and the TV shows. The full moon and the emergency room is crazy. And why? It's a true thing. Anybody who works in a hospital or in ER knows this. For some reason, parasites become more active during the full moon. And so if your child has a lot of behaviors around that time, probably parasites. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. Okay, so look into that. And we've got supplements for parasites. We got an amazing one called Paraslayer, but does it taste bad? So you got to be able to swallow the pill. But if not, we can talk about other kind of parasite supplements. And when you order lab testing through our website, I look at the lab result, I write up a written interpretation and send it to you. So you get the report, your lab result, and my advice. All right, Tracy says, what is head banging while asleep? I don't know, Tracy, but the first thing that comes up to my mind is you should do an EEG. You should do an overnight EEG for seizures. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but I've never heard that before. I've never heard a parent tell me, oh yeah, my kid bangs his head while he's sleeping. I would look at seizures. Get an EEG from your neurologist overnight. 24-hour or 48-hour is best. Retha, hey doc, I have histamine C chewable, super serotonin, NAC. My daughter still has bad allergies, pink eyes, sneezing. What else can I add, please? Try the Allergon. Okay, so Allergon is our nettles, quercetin, rosemary, bromelain combo. So try that, Retha. All right, everybody. That is all the questions. I got through all the questions today. That doesn't happen very often. So let's show the coupon and do a quick summary. Mary says hi. Hey, Mary. All right, coupon for the weekend is Histamine 20. That's right, Histamine 20 is going to get you 20% off any of the supplements, any of the lab tests, even our bundles on SpectrumAwakening.com. That expires this May 12th, 2024. If you want one-on-one help, set up a telemedicine video appointment. Just go to our website, click appointments. You, me, on your phone, on your computer, anywhere in the world. I'm here to help. That's what I've been doing for 20 years. That's what I want to keep doing. BP, do we do the full dose of Allergon for children, or is it a half dose? I would start with one cap and maybe increase after that. So, yeah, I would definitely start with a full cap. I wouldn't want you to underdose and not get the effect. All right, quick review. All right, hey, it's spring. It's allergy season. Does your child suffer with allergies? Maybe they do, or maybe they have non-stereotypical allergy symptoms. Instead of watery eyes, runny nose, maybe they have acid reflux and they're really cranky in the morning. Or maybe they have sleep problems, or maybe they're stimming more. Why? Because our body has histamine. Histamine is that chemical of allergies. Not only does it produce allergic symptoms, it also produces acid reflux and brain stimulation. Histamine is a brain stimulant, causes anxiety, stimming, and sleep problems. Okay? Where do we get this histamine? Well, we get it from food. Histamine is a protein building block. It's an amino acid. So we get it from foods, and there are certain foods that have high levels of histamine, especially any meat that's been cooked and sitting on the shelves. Hot dogs, bacon, cold cuts, chicken nuggets, also ketchup, also chocolate, also cheese, also anything with vinegar. I didn't talk about that. Olives, pickles are big ones, okay? So if your child seems to have symptoms after they eat this food, somebody just talked about, my child had a hot dog last night and didn't sleep, could be histamine from foods. How can we help this naturally? All right. Now you can, antihistamines over the counter like Benadryl, Zyrtec, or Claritin, they're great for the stereotypical allergic symptoms, but they do nothing for the histamine symptoms of the brain. They're just not developed to do that. Okay. That's not their job. All right. So we want to reduce histamine in the body. Scientific research, which we showed today, vitamin C, bioflavonoids, quercetin, and nettles, all scientifically researched to reduce histamine in the body. All right. We've got that in our Spectrum Awakening supplements, histamine C and Allergon. So try that stuff. And don't forget, Spectrum Awakening's got a 30-day return policy. So if it doesn't work, send it back. All right. Couple last questions. Brianna, my child Sorry, I got the Brianna's question again. My child had a hot dog last night. I want to answer it again. Child had a hot dog last night and stayed awake. Does it mean they have a nitrate sensitivity? No, a histamine problem. Try the Allergon. Try the histamine C. Alyssa, why are kidney stones coming back? I don't know. Good question. Gata, should I do a food IgG test? Yeah, I would. Now, IgG is food sensitivity, not food allergy. So there's different acronyms in medicine. IgG is the immune response that produces sensitivity symptoms. IgE is the test that analyzes for allergies and histamine response. Mira's on a lot. Hey doc, can Lyme or Borrelia cause autistic behaviors? What do you recommend in case of congenital infections? Yes, Lyme, Borrelia, other tick-borne illnesses can definitely be involved with autism, especially if it's inherited from the mother. It just crosses the placenta. If the mother has, anything that the mother has is going to cross that placenta again, the kid. So what do you recommend? There are a multitude of anti-Lyme herbals that work really well. I am not a Lyme specialist, but my colleague in my office, Dr. Erica Smith, is a Lyme specialist. And what I would do is set up a telemedicine appointment with her and discuss it, because that's just not my arena. A couple other questions. We'll wrap up. Tracy, NAC can cause kidney stones. Drink a lot of water. That's good to know. Mirica, Mitomax and probiotics have done so much good for my daughter. We are seeing improvements daily. Thank you, Mirica. That's what we want. We want the mitochondrial support to help our kids. I love this. Probiotics, gut support. Mirica, we'll start next week with Power and Focus. I want to hear, Mirica. Make sure you're on the Facebook Live in a week or two. I want to hear how the Power Focus is doing. BP, if the kiddo has phenol sensitivity, like reacts to olive oil, should we try only vitamin C and quercetin alone? Sure. Yeah, go for it. And again, this is where we need to work with our kids individually and do what's best for them. All right, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in. This is Autism Awakening, the podcast that helps you help your child with autism. I've hoped we've kind of explained histamine and how it can affect our kids, different natural things that you can try. I'm excited for our next two podcasts, so make sure you watch them, whether it's live or whether it's later. Next two podcasts are going to be about handling parent stress, okay? Who's stressed? We all stressed. So next week, we're going to be talking about different natural therapies, natural supplements to help you build up the tolerance to handle more stress. And then in 2 weeks, I'm really excited, we're going to have another guest speaker. And he is somebody that I've worked with personally to help handle and manage my stress through different kind of physical activities. So not necessarily exercise, but physical training that you can do to help build that emotional core, broaden your shoulders so you can handle the stress of life, whether it's your family, whether it's your child, whether it's your husband, whether it's your work, whether it's who knows what, you can handle it better. So tune in those next 2 weeks. Again, coupon for the weekend, Histamine 20, get you 20% off all of our supplements and lab tests. Set up an appointment if you want to talk one-on-one. I'm here to help you guys, and the one thing I need from you is share this information. Get this information out. There's too many parents around the world maybe they're next door, maybe the next town, maybe the next country, who knows? They need to know that there are answers for their kids. So help us spread the word so we can help kids around the world. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.